Welcome, friends, to the apocalypse. Welcome to the wasteland. This is Podcast at Ground Zero, Episode 2. We made it to a second episode. Yay for us. I am your host, Jared the Apocalypse Nerd Wallace, along with co-host Adam Scott Glancy, and special guest host today, Chris Van Deelen. I got that right. Van Deelen?
You bet. Very few people get it right, so congratulations.
Thank you. I'm terrible with names. So, okay, this episode we have Chris on because the main subject for the is going to be a book series or two book series put out by Gold Eagle Publishing, Deathlands and the Outlanders. Before we get into that, because Chris is a bit of an expert on that, and we'll get into that here in just a minute. Just a couple of things I want to talk about here. I'm going to kind of start the shows off going forward with a kind of in the news feature, kind of maybe some things that are happening in the post-apocalyptic world that maybe little tidbits I've caught and just kind of wanted to share that information. Also, talk about some of the things that maybe I got going on with the blog and things like that. So one of the things I got going with the blog now is I've been able to successfully extract the audio from the videos now. So I'm going to be able to start posting just the audio. So for the people who don't have time to sit down and watch the video,
for the people who don't want to look at our faces, frankly, and this is going to be perfect.
well, of course, but also when you're driving, because you really shouldn't be hey, let me watch this podcast while I'm driving. Crash.
Podcasting while driving that's probably how the apocalypse is going to start.
Exactly. So, so I'm working on getting that in place, getting it, the video and the audio, get it on iTunes. So, again, like I said last time, growing process. A couple of little tidbits I did notice in the news coming up. I'm sure everybody may or may not already know this, but in June there is going to be a release of the Mad Max trilogy on Blu-ray, June 4th, put up by Warner Home Video. So it's going to have Mad Max 2 or The Road Warrior, and Beyond Thunderdome. And we'll get into those movies another time. But we're going to be...
Mr. Wallace, can you confirm or deny whether or not it will be the Australian dubbing or the American dubbing of Mad Max?
I do not have any more information on it. It was just got announced within this last week that it's coming out. No further details. I know because we're Americans, and no, we can't listen to Australian accents. We must...
No, it's incomprehensible, so we have to have some other voice on top of Mel Gibson.
Of course. Well, nowadays that might be preferable, but,
Well, it's not like they have to dub over him screaming about the Jews.
Well, that's the special edition that's going to be coming out.
When Mel Gibson says outlaw biker trash, really what he means is Jews.
Of course. And another bit that I came across, J.G. Ballard, who wrote a novel called The Drowned World. I don't know if anybody here has read that. It came out, that might have been in the 60s. That's something, again, we could talk about when we get more into other books. But that has been optioned for there's talk. The director, I guess the producer for Harry Potter, along with Jeremy Clifford, they're looking to put that on celluloid. No further details on that yet, just that it's being talked about. And of course, it's being done by the people that did Harry Potter, so I can only imagine what it's going to come out like. But
are they shooting for PG-13, PG?
It's still in discussions, but we'll see. So that's kind of kind of interesting that because I just read that recently in the last couple of years, and I was like, oh, The Drowned World is a movie, so interesting. So there you go. So just a couple little bits of stuff that's going on here. I'm sure you may notice I did change my background a little bit because the radiation levels are getting too high on the surface, so I had to pull the studios down into the bunker. So
actually, there were complaints about the monkey. Let's be honest here. The people were calling and commenting and saying the monkey was staring at them with its dead googly eyes.
Well, it was.
So we have a backdrop to protect your delicate sensibilities from the monkey.
Yes. So there you go. All right, so that's what's going on here. Now, we brought Chris on because Chris is a bit of an expert on the Deathlands series. That was the first book, Pilgrimage to Hell, which was the first book in the series. which came out in 1986. Thank you, Chris.
Amazingly enough, I actually have it sitting on my desk. Go figure.
I as well. Well, it's sitting on my bookshelf. But here, Chris, do you still have the original insert?
Never took it out of the book.
I love this guy. That's why he's on the show. So
actually, I think I've got several copies of this hanging around in storage. Wanted to make sure that they didn't disappear. And I figured maybe, in 10, 20 years down the road, I'd be able to get a few bucks for them because there'd be people who'd want them.
Other people call that hoarding, but whatever gets you through the day,
Well, you should have seen all the boxes of stuff I took away a couple of weeks ago. Was doing some cleanup in here, and God, I must have recycled probably about 6 boxes of books. As much as I hated to do it, I just didn't have the room for them anymore. But then again, I get most of my reading done on audio now, so.
There you go. Looks like I lost Scott here, so let's see if he could get back on here. But
unfortunately, it might happen here as well. It's not as bad as it used to be, but I'm still dropping out a couple of times a night on the average. So.
Oh, okay.
Just figured I'd give you a heads up.
All right. Well, let's see here. Well, let's at least continue rolling, and if he needs to ping me, he will ping me to get back in. He should hopefully have the link on there. You know what? Let's see here. All right, so the Deathlands came out in 1986, originally under the title...
Actually, 86.
Was it 86?
I was still in high school.
Yes, I think me and you both were in high school. All right, let's...
Well, you know what? Why don't we just take a look here? Copyright date. Yep, 86. June 86 was the first edition.
Okay. I apologize, folks, here. I'm trying to get Mr. Glancy back in here. I'm sending him the link to join again, so hopefully you'll see that on his Facebook page. So, yeah, it came out in 1986, and I originally discovered, well, I won't tell you I discovered, but again, I was saying the reason I had Chris on here is because Chris had the first, probably on the, oh, there we go, Mr. Glancy. No, Mike. You're muted. Can't hear you. Can't hear you. All right.
Maybe it's for the best. Maybe he's swearing up a storm.
It could be. Go to the top and unmute yourself, Scott, if you could hear us. Or no. It's funny. It's like he's like a talking monkey. Go up top, Scott. You see up top there? You might be able to unmute yourself.
Yeah,
or...
apparently when you fall off the internet, it automatically mutes you.
Okay. All right. So we got Scott back. Thank God.
Temporary communication disruption, near miss by a Soviet SS-22. Just hit down the block. It's all better now.
Okay. So we got Scott back. So I was talking to we had Chris on here. As far as I know, Chris had the first and probably only Deathlands fan site that I didn't know this until I met Chris about a month ago. He's like, yeah, I had the fan site, and I thought back and I'm like, oh yeah, I used to go to that website like 10, 15 years ago. I don't know. I'm not sure. When did you start that website, Chris?
Oh God, that. You know what? I can't even remember. I think it was just after my son was born. He's 18 now, so it's been quite some time. And just to clarify one thing, yeah, I used to be kind of the guru when it comes to Deathlands, but once they started going to the revolving door system for writers and they threw continuity out the door and everything like that, I just gave up on it. I think I stopped reading around book 44, and they're up at, I believe it's around 108 right now. So, yeah, it's been a long time since I've read any of the books.
Yeah, I stopped myself. I stopped myself. I probably stopped in the 60s. But Chris had this website up that was very useful because it's a very good series that came out. It was originally produced by James Lawrence and
Lawrence James, actually.
Lawrence James.
Rest his soul. He passed away quite a few years ago.
And another author who was actually, who is it? It was it Jack Ahern, or was that his pen name.
Oh, you're thinking of Jerry Ahern, who wrote the Survivalist series, and unfortunately he recently passed away from cancer as well.
Oh.
Jack Adrian was the original author,
thank you.
and he did basically if I remember the story correctly, he wrote approximately the first half of Pilgrimage to Hell. And for some reason, which I never really did find out why, had to leave, and that's when Lawrence James, a.k.a. the first James Axler, showed up and started writing the series, and he wrote the next 33 in this series.
Have we explained that James Axler was just a pen name employed by Golden Eagle?
Yes.
That we just kept cycling authors through this pen name over and over and over again.
Yeah, he did it through, like you said, book 33. But then he wrote one final book, 44, A Crucible of Time. But then after that, it was all, a couple of revolving door authors that it got worse and worse. But let's tell them what the book's about first before we start going on about what we like and dislike about the series.
Shouldn't you be holding up copies of the book, Mr. Wallace?
We did. Me and Chris held up copies of the book.
Too much glare. Tilt it a little bit. Yeah, there you go. That's better.
There you go, people.
All right, Deathlands. That's better.
All right, let me pin myself so people could see the book.
There we go.
Pilgrimage to Hell. So this is the first book. I first discovered it in a mall, senior year of high school, summer of '86. Again, I was fully into reading a lot of these post-apocalyptic books, and I came across this, and it looked interesting. So what it is basically it's was it January 20th, 2001? There was the Washington D.C. was wiped out by a nuclear bomb, which caused the apocalypse.
A sneak attack by those dirty Reds, which sadly didn't last until 2001. But
exactly.
What the heck? All right.
In my world, it's still happening. But it's
You and your love affair with the Soviet Union.
I love him. I miss him so. And after that was the Skydark, which was basically the nuclear winter. The books pick up 100 years later, after the event, the apocalypse. Now, mind you, people, I'm not going to be. I may or may not be that good at filtering. So there may be spoilers. So be aware now. There may be spoilers. I'll try not to spoil too much, but I want to give a general idea.
To hell with that. There's just going to be spoilers, and they're just going to have to live with it.
The Butler did it, but
go out, read all 112 books, and then watch the podcast.
Then watch the podcast. So,
and even if you can find it, watch the god-awful Homeward Bound that was put out by Sci-Fi Channel.
Oh no!
At least a decade ago.
Let's wait.
You mean this?
To get to
that one, yes.
2003. There you go.
Okay, I was right. A decade ago.
Yep, Tracy Lords. But we'll talk about this piece of crap later. But so basically, the book takes place. It's basically a kind of a medieval feudal society. There's barons who control towns. There's a group of people. There's a guy called the Trader who runs this whole organization. They go to these. Is it readouts? I always get that wrong.
That's the way I was taught to say it. So readouts.
So they find these readouts, which are these government secret bunkers, which held supplies and weapons and ammo and technology. So the Trader used to go around, find all this stuff, and they would trade people for it. He drove around the country in what were called war wags, and they had a crew of people. Now, in the first book, they wound up establishing the characters. Of course, there's Ryan Cowder, the Trader, J.B. Dix, several different main characters. One's like the second in command. J.B. Dix is the weapons master. So you find all these characters. You pick up,
mutant girlfriend, whose name
Christy.
Christy, yes.
Christy, what's I can't remember
Christy
her last
Roth.
name.
Roth.
Thank you. Christy.
What's the language on this one? PG or not?
Oh no, but feel free to curse like a sailor with Tourette's here at Ground Zero.
Christy Roth isn't his girlfriend. She's his fuck bunny.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to say his beard.
No, she's nothing. To me, she was nothing more than a sex toy for him. Basically, word count filler for the books. I always found it tedious and pointless. Then again, maybe I'm just getting old.
Well, yeah, they did have a lot of gratuitous sex scenes
Well,
in the book.
and let's be honest. These books were, absolutely were sort of throwbacks to the pulp age, in that you're going to get more descriptions about the firearms used than you are about the intimate details of people's relationships to each other. That stuff's going to fly by. Okay, we're friends to the end, and then okay, that's all the description you get there. But if Ryan Codor picks up a new blaster, expect at least a paragraph or two on that new love affair.
Well, just be thankful that Lawrence James didn't go Jerry Ahern's road. Every damn book in the Survivalist, he was describing his Detonics, Score Masters, and all the other weapons.
Detonics 45s. Well, the Survivalist is basically gun porn, but we'll talk about again.
Don't get me wrong. Actually, I really enjoyed that series, and I'll explain it at a later time.
But the mantra that would show up where every book would describe the twin Deutonics 45 hard ballers with the Pacmar grips. I mean, it was like a mantra, that opened every book. But let's move back to the.
Yep. Sorry, I apologize.
So, no. That's what we're here for. We're here to talk.
Deathlands is far more four color, and it's very pulpy. It's very
it's Men's Adventure. It's put out by Gold Eagle, who's Men's Adventures books, who put out Mac Boland and other series, Phoenix Force.
Stony Man, Survival 2000, yeah, you name it.
Yeah.
No, thank you for bringing up Survival 2000. That's another book in the series, and also Earthblood as well. But
that's what I was trying to think of. I just couldn't remember the title.
Oh, Earthblood and Survival 2000. I've read both of those miniseries of 3 books, of course, but.
Yeah. Hey, let's do a little product placement there. The Earthblood series is available through graphicaudio.net, and you know what? They're worth picking up if you enjoy audio.
The Earthblood, yeah, they were. From what I remember, they were pretty good. It's been I probably haven't read them since they came out, so it's been a while.
So the back to the Deathlands, yeah, these are very, very four-color, very pulpy, post-apocalyptic adventures, and
formula, man.
I guess what sets them apart, from others, was I would have said was the big sort of key element of the stories. The MacGuffin was the transmats.
Yes, yeah, the Matrans units, which were, when I was talking about the readouts, they came across these readouts and it had this matter transmitter. It's like a teleportation device in there. And after that first book, they also discovered Doc Tanner there. All the main characters were, well, most of the main characters were established in the first book. We lost some. We picked up some more later. But the books were centered around the Matrans units, which they didn't know how to operate, except they knew how to turn it on, and then eventually they learned how to, make it. They learned a couple of little tweaks, like how to return to the previous location. But basically, it was random where they got put down, and that's where the book would pick up. Like, hey, we're in South America. Hey, we're in Russia. Would be where the book took place.
Them anywhere in the post-apocalyptic world, and you didn't have to get into all that tedious humping it through the boonies and radiation and swamps full of titanic mutants. You could just bang, they're in Russia. Bang, they're in Japan, or wherever it was they ended up, and be dropped down into a story, meet the locals, kill them, get back in the bat trash, and go someplace else.
And of course, they did run into some adversaries during the way. Now, that was the good part. When Lawrence James was writing them, there was some consistency with the stories. Like, he had his agenda, and he kind of followed his path and tried to keep continuity of the stories. But after he stopped writing them, which was Chris had said 33.
Book 33 or issue 33, whatever you want to call it.
Eclipse at Noon. They started doing other writers like Mark Ellis, Mel Odom, and the problem, what I noticed, what it was, nobody gave a crap about what the previous guy wrote. So when somebody started a great idea.
I'll give you a little bit of a background on that. Mark Ellis, Mel Odom, and I can't remember who the third guy was that started writing. They actually did work together for several books, talking to each other, ensuring that there was continuity and so on and so forth. But basically, eventually, Gold Eagle just nixed it and started doing the whole revolving door. And, well, I think it also happened when Mark started writing his Outlanders series. And
Yeah,
then, yeah, after that, they just threw continuity out the window and just said basically, do what you want.
yeah, because it looks like, because I said Lawrence James wrote his last novel, 44, Crucible of Time. So you noticed a little bit of difference between Eclipse at Noon and Crucible of Time. It got a little iffy, but it still kept along the same line. But after that, it just went off the rails because there were some good plot points that were established in these books, but nobody would be like, the last guy wrote like, well, I don't care if this guy wrote about that the last book. I want to write what I want to write about. So you'd get some cool stuff brought up and never visited again.
Yep. Well, like JB's glaucoma. That was never ever brought up again.
Suddenly it's a plot point, he's going blind, and then suddenly, boom, we forget about it. It's never brought up.
And all of a sudden he also develops verbal diarrhea, where he always used the minimum amount of wordage whenever he was talking. You know, things like that. Characterization got thrown out, and they just decided to write the characters any way they wanted.
Was there never, I'm presuming that the only series Bible was in our first author's head, and after that they never maintained a series Bible or of any sort.
Well, supposedly there was a series Bible. I personally never saw it, even though I had asked one of the line editors at the time if I could get a copy of it, but no, I never saw it. So
okay, you know, a few years back, sometime this century, I was in a grocery store up in Seattle here, and in the in the cheap paperback section of the quality food center grocery store, I actually ran across a guidebook to the Deathlands. It was like a Deathlands encyclopedia. I saw it once, and I thought, holy crap, really? There's a Deathlands encyclopedia? You know, this is interesting. And I didn't pick it up. I come back, they're gone. They've obviously been taken to the pulp plant or something and torn up and disintegrated. I'm just curious, did you ever run into this a Deathlands encyclopedia? It would have been published fairly early, maybe like 2000, 2001, something, maybe even 99.
Wow, no, I don't remember that off the top of my head. Then again, I gave up reading the series way back then, around 2000 or so. But no, that definitely does not ring a chord with me at all.
Okay, because I've again always regretted not grabbing it and sending a copy to Mr. Wallace, because I knew at the time he was a huge Deathlands fan, and Jared, you picked yours up. Did you say at a shopping mall bookstore, like a B. Dalton's or something?
It was. I was in New York on vacation, summer of '86, and I was just looking through the book section, looking for a new post-apocalyptic novel to read, and I was like, "Deathlands? What's this Deathlands?
Oh, this guy's got a scar and an eye patch. I think we might have something here." Yeah.
Exactly. So I like the series. Even though it got a little formulaic, but I always like the different adventures they would go on, and I liked how they didn't go, this is why there was mystery, a mystique of what are these Matrans units, what are the readouts, and they would drop you little bits of information here and there.
You got the impression that there was some sort of plot or plan or something that had been in pre-Skydark, and as you went from one redoubt to another, and you encountered the freezies, the people who were in cryosleep, you got bits and pieces of the plan, or some evidence that there was some overarching idea, but it was nicely dripped out. It really felt they weren't just going to just drop the plot on you, by having Basil exposition show up and just blah, here's the plot.
Yeah, little by little, it would be like, it's like part of, Cerebus. Okay, what's the Cerebus? Then it's like, Project Overwhisper. Then the totality concept. So that you'd find all these different things, and it was nice how it wasn't all just a big reveal. There was some mystery. There was always something to solve. And like I said,
did a good job of peeling that onion. Just taking it a layer at a time.
And there was a lot of things I liked, again, but when they started the rotating authors, it got like there was things like the Anthill, which was in Stoneface, never followed up with that again. It was like this. It was this readout that had bits of the old government there. They were like cyborgs, interesting stuff. There was an army. I don't remember what book it was in, but there was this army of immortals Basically, so it was some kind of military experiment. They made these people, these soldiers, immortal. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be interesting because they're rolling around the countryside with tanks and military hardware. Whoop, disappeared. Never heard from them again.
Now, the upside is everything that you've brought up here, Mark Ellis actually answered every single question you've mentioned in his Outlander series because it never was brought up in the Deathlands other than just here and there, little bits and pieces, tidbits. And, of course, as we've discussed already, when it went to the revolving doors, everything was thrown out. So Mark decided that he was going to remedy that situation. So everything that you've brought up has been answered in detail, unfortunately numerous times, in the Outlander series.
Yeah, the Outlander series, which I fear came out, and I was intrigued by it when it if we could see that here, when it first came out. But I only read maybe 3, 4, 5 because I didn't enjoy it because basically the Outlander series is still set in the same universe. It takes place 100 years after the Deathlands, so it's 200 years after the event, the apocalypse. So society is more established. They've basically started inhabiting the readouts. The barons have taken over, but I don't want to give too many spoilers. But basically, you're right. Chris is right. They gave you answers to everything. They just vomited out. Here's every answer that you've had questions about. Now, I didn't.
It was such an easy delivery.
Oh, the answer was like, really, we're just going with that cop out answer. There was nothing. I'm not going to reveal because I don't want to give too many spoilers. But the answer's like, here's the easy answer. Really, that's all it is. That's bullshit. It totally disenfranchised me with the franchise.
Well, some people look at it that way. For me, I'm far more of a science fiction fan, so it appealed to me. And also, Mark Ellis wanted to get away from the whole post-apocalyptic setting, so that's one of the reasons why he went that route. Maybe someday you can actually get him on. I can always talk to him and see if he'd be interested in coming on to the podcast and discussing the series with you guys.
That's a definite possibility.
We're open to anything that will increase our viewership.
Yes, but I understand. Totally understand Chris's point of view. How it became more. He wanted to make it more of a sci-fi thing to get away from the apocalypse. Where I enjoyed the apocalypse thing, and just to me, that's what kept me drawn into the series of the Deathlands. Is like they parsed out the information little by little, peeled back the onion. Didn't just give you one answer to everything, which I kind of liked. I like being able to read and reveal and slowly reveal the information. But like I said, he gave all the answers to things like the anthill, the mortal armies. It's like, but it's kind of an after the fact kind of thing. It's like, well, we're kind of putting that behind. Here's all your answers. It's like, no. I wanted to see those things develop into stories of the Deathlands. But again, it became revolving door, became formula. And it lost the original vision that Lawrence James had.
Let me ask both you guys a question because, Michael, I didn't hear from you. Where did you stumble across the Deathlands first? I mean, did you stumble across it back in the late 80s when they were first popping out, or later?
Well, I found it way back in the early 80s. I was reading everything that came out that was post-apocalyptic, and I won't deny it. Most of it was complete and utter shit.
That's correct.
I wouldn't even use it to wipe my ass. It was, but it was the thing that I enjoyed. Many years ago, my first role-playing game of all games was Gamma World, not Dungeons and Dragons.
Thank you.
That's
Me too.
And that's one of the reasons why I enjoyed the genre so much.
Yeah.
So when I saw the post-apocalyptic genre come out in book form, I started picking them all up, mainly because I wanted ideas for running games.
Damn Skippy.
I ended up finding the Pilgrimage to Hell novel in, I think it was Kohl's back in Regina when I was still in high school, and what really appealed to me is it was coming out every 3 months too, and of course what we talked about.
Oh yeah.
The continuity, characterization. He wasn't afraid to kill off characters or even introduce new characters until they settled down for the main crew, if you want, if that's the word you're looking for.
Yeah.
And, even to this day, if they would have managed to keep the continuity, even with all the revolving door authors, I probably would still be reading it. Because I know there's a lot of good story. Well, I guess it all depends on who you're talking.
Yeah.
Good stories, crap stories, so on and so forth. But several of the Revolving Door authors actually did stand out and wrote quite a few really well received novels for the series, and then there were others that were just frowned upon.
So,
Like,
what are the things? What are the things from the Deathlands that really stood out for you as what? I mean, yeah, okay. You're looking for ideas. You're looking for inspiration to do your own stuff for Gamma and frankly, that was a school I came from as well. What kind of things? What were the things that jumped out at you from the stories that were like, oh yeah, we got to have that in our game. This is what people want from their post-apocalyptic experience. What were the things in Deathlands for you that worked like that?
I like the muties, for the most part. You know, they started getting really stupid after a while, like the water beetle people and other crap like that showed up just before I stopped reading it.
The
But
stickies, right off the bat.
stickies and fleshies were, I think, were the standards at the beginning, at least.
Yeah, I can't even remember. Yeah, the one that sticks out, of course, the most is the stickies. But, you know, it seemed every book that Lawrence James always tried to have at least one or two new freaky critters in the series. And it wasn't all about just, you know, the biggest blaster, too. He experimented. You know, he tried using things like laser weapons. I remember from Neutron Solstice, if that was the correct one. Also, you know, he tried to play around with high technology. And like we've discussed before, the one thing I really enjoyed about it was the unknown, the exploration, seeing what happened to, you know, landmarks, places that you know in real life, and what he did to destroy them.
You want them to get out of the redoubt and be able to look out and go, oh, well, there's the Space Needle bent in half, or, you know, whatever, or find out what, you know, what abysmal cult has grown up in your hometown's backyard.
Oh, even the readouts were good, because sometimes I went there, they're like, oh my god, there's working water, we can take a shower, you know. It's like, and that was like such a big deal, and it's like you felt like, yeah, they found something, thank you, you know, because they had nothing, because they were basically traveling around with what was on their backs, you know. So
they were basically they were basically player characters. Let's be honest. They're like they're just role playing game. They were just murder hobos who would go from place to place and essentially shoot everybody they met.
Well, speaking of correlating to role playing games, something that came to mind, which I thought of when I was reading the series, was because of the Matrans units. Now, they hinted a couple of times that they went into space, whether it's a space. Well, they did go to space station, which was obvious, but like the moon, maybe Mars, and what it made me think about was in Polyhedron magazine, which was put out by was it not Gamma didn't put that out? That was who put out Polyhedron?
Wasn't that an offshoot from TSR way back in the day?
I thought it was.
I think
it was one that was published only through mail order. You couldn't just go to the store and buy it the way you could Dragon way back when.
Yeah, it was Polyhedron came out, and they used to have Gamma World stuff in there. A lot of it was written by James Ward, so any of that was considered canon in my book. But there was one issue where they talked about Mars, and they talked about these matter transmitter units that was based in South America, and only once every 6-month window could they transport to Mars. So I immediately, like, when I started reading the Deathlands, I'm like, oh yeah, that's like in that Gamma World thing. And so I kind of correlated to the role playing, because it touched base with me, because it's like, oh wow, you know, this is something I've read about in the gaming, and now it's in this book. That's so cool.
Yeah.
You know, those are things I enjoyed. Those are things I enjoyed about the series, because it would definitely remind me of gaming and pull out. Because when I used to play the Gamma World, we never played the over the top, but not as low tech as Deathlands.
They were giant rabbits with guns, but you didn't play over the top. I understand.
Well, no, we didn't use those, but I always saw Deathlands was a good Gamma World setting for something that's not over the top, but has technology, has mutants, things like that, because. There were mutants, and they're not like in the Endworld series where the mutants were genetically engineered. Anyway, we could talk about Endworld at another time.
Well, and we should point out that the radiation in the Deathlands is the same kind of radiation you get in Gamma World, in that, once you're irradiated, you get special superpowers. It's not that your teeth fall out of your gums and your liver, you shit your liver. It's the Peter Parker Spider-Man radiation, So it was, in that sense, it's also very pulpy in that, it's kind of the 1950s atomic giant ants sort of radiation.
Speaking of games, I kind of want to push something that I've got coming out in the very near future, probably in the next month or two. I've actually gone and written one full issue. Maybe it'll be spread out for 2 issues of Wisdom from the Wasteland that deal with different types of radiation. Because it's never been done in any of the games before. Like Gamma World, even Mutant Future, you got, okay, class 1 to 10 or whatever type of radiation, and it'll harm you, it can mutate you, and that's it. So I've used lots of different sources for inspiration, and I came up with something, at least, I believe it was around 26 different types of radiation, which will have all kinds of really bizarre effects. Look for that in the Wisdom of the Wasteland coming out in the next month or so.
Yeah, because so the fans of Wisdom of the Wastelands is put out by Skirmisher puts it out, right? Skirmisher Publishing puts that out. For the Mutant Future role-playing game, and Chris writes to them frequently, and again, that's where we get all the post-apocalyptic connection here. So, because again, we're all fans of the genre, and it all crosses over, So, yeah, Chris has wrote.
Sorry, Jared. The best part about it is that it isn't just for Mutant Future. It's old school rules, so it can be easily adapted to Gamma World or any other of the old school type games that you want.
Perfect.
Mr. Wallace, I also put that question to you. What were the things about the Deathlands, the elements? Were there elements in it that when you cracked open that first book, you're like, was it the war wags that turned up from the traders' caravan that was like, oh yeah, I want to hear more about this? I mean, what was the things that jumped out at you that you?
It was the war wags. It was the whole setting. It was like they're traders. They're the war wags. They found the readout. It's like, oh look, there's a secret bunker, and it's cool. It's it's a tomb of the ancients, and what kind of tech is in there, that all drew me because again, it read to me being very Gamma World, in a sense. Again, a little more low tech, but the same basic element, It's like there's the past, there's the ancients, we're basically just harvesting what's left to live and survive on. So again, it was very good to be very Gamma World. But like I said, the series, like Chris has said, some books were great, some were crap. Some were some ridiculous elements that people brought in stories. Like there was a lot of several books that later on, probably after Chris stopped reading, that were like a lot of open to other dimension stuff.
I can remember reading a story about that and thought, wow, you guys are out of ideas.
Yeah, so...
You know what? Those were, if I'm not mistaken, it sounds like the ones that Alan Phillipson, if that's the correct name, wrote. He did, I think, something like 16 books for this series, and pretty much most of the stuff he wrote was very well received. Again, maybe guys like you didn't really care for the science fiction aspect of it, but for the most part, they were very well received.
I think about post-apocalyptic characters, where you take the post-apocalyptic characters out of the post-apocalypse, put them in a completely different setting, even temporarily for one story, that was like, well, where's my apocalypse, dude?
Alan Phillipson, Shadow World was the first one. That was the first one where Ryan goes to another dimension. It was an okay distraction every once in a while, don't get me wrong. It was kind of like, at first I was like, okay, that's kind of interesting, but then when it became the common theme, like, yes, they're coming over and mining our planet, and they're doing all this, it got to me, personally, it got to be a bit much after a while. It's like, okay,
the guys I never got enough about were the Dirty Reds. Two of my favorite stories were Red Holocaust and Red Equinox.
I believe that's what they were called.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, where the first one is some Soviet marauders are being chased out of Siberia across the Bering Straits by the commie authorities, and they go into Alaska because they've heard these stories that America's a land of plenty, and they get over to Alaska and it's just filled with mutants and psychos, and it's just as horrible as Siberia is. And so there's this sort of red invasion, I guess you'd call it, where you've got both these Russian bandit marauders, and hot on their heels are again the Soviet authorities, and this implication that there was something going on in the East more organized and more sinister and had its act together more than over in the States and could be a threat to it. I really like that, where they hinted at that, and they certainly went all out in Red Equinox when they actually end up in Moscow. And you get a look at the party and the whole, the rather organized post-apocalyptic Russia, at least organized compared to, what you see in the American Deathlands. And I kept thinking, oh, great, we've had World War III, now it's time for World War IV, where we're going to get to bash some Reds. They did 2 stories and never came back to it, as far as I remember.
Okay.
It was disappointing. But,
All right. Let's gonna start wrapping up here. A little bit over. Like I said, again, we're not over. I said we're gonna be around 45 minutes. But before we go, like I said, let's just touch brief on this piece of garbage. This was Deathlands: Homeward Bound, which was a Sci-Fi Channel movie based on the Deathlands series, and Homeward Bound, which I think was the 5th book in the series, if I remember correctly.
It's easy enough to check online, but I think it was the 4th. But anyways, whatever.
Nope. I just looked. I just looked. It's the 5th. Haha.
Okay. Hey, you were right, and I was wrong. I won't have any problems admitting that.
Geek cred. But
I gotta tell you, there's very few times, and I watched it. I could see it on. It's broken up into bite-sized chunks on YouTube. So I quickly went and took a look at it last week. And it's not often that I use the phrase unwatchable.
Yeah, it's pretty heinous, but
oh my God!
Let's put it this way: I'd rather watch some god awful Hindi or, well, my wife's culture, Filipino, computer special effects movie than ever see that atrocity again.
And let's be honest, the Filipinos made a ton of post-apocalyptic movies.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? If they did, I've never seen a one.
Oh, there are a number of really terrible post-apocalyptic films made in the Philippines. Most interestingly, using the old U.S. fortifications in and around Manila Bay as ruins, redoubts, bunker complexes, things like that.
Which we'll save for another show, but. Just because, again, I want to get us wrapped up here. Like I said, the movie. So if anybody has a chance to check it on YouTube, feel free. Like I said, problems. The biggest problem I have in it. Well, one of the biggest problems I have with this movie is it's missing one of the major characters. Doc Tanner is not in that book that movie, and of course another problem with it is it's got Tracy Lords in it. I guess that's when she decided I'm not a porn star. I'm an actress.
Let's be honest. Tracy Lords is one of the film's smallest problems.
Yeah,
it's got giant. That's like saying, you got a little dirt on your face here, and ignoring the sucking chest wound. It is. I don't know.
2 words from me about that. Muty rage. When I saw that, it was just, oh my God. That's it. No more.
I forgot about that.
Muty rage.
Yeah, Jack. Muty rage. It was, oh God, you're kidding me.
I forgot about Muty rage. Thank you for reminding me of Muty rage. I'm going to be using that term from now on. Okay. Okay, so we're going to start wrapping up here. I know Chris wanted to mention a book that he has coming out, so I want to let him get a chance to talk about that for a moment.
Actually, it's not coming out. It already came out in 2004. I co-wrote Mask of the Sphinx, the 30th novel in the Outlander series with Mark Ellis. I wrote it, he vetted it for me, and then we published it under his contract, and it was pretty much the best received non-Ellis book of the whole series. The ones that Mel Odom wrote, they weren't exactly stellar or well received, and I haven't really been keeping up with actually, I haven't been keeping up at all. I just couldn't stomach reading any of the stuff that was put out by the ghostwriters that took over after Mark gave up several years ago. Or actually, I shouldn't say gave up when he was technically forced out, but you know what? He can always tell the story if he ever comes on what happened. I tried reading 2 of them, and I was actually quite amazed to see that the ghostwriter, I think his name is Rick Hoskins, used one character I created in Mask of the Sphinx, Deckard. Deckard turned out to be a young magistrate that ended up being taken under Kane's wing, essentially. And he actually did show up in a couple of other novels that Mark wrote. But it shocked the hell out of me when I saw this Rick Hoskins guy use my character. I kind of had wanted Mark to actually kill him off, so none of the other authors could do so, but never happened, so whatever.
I have to ask this question. Mask of the Sphinx, does this mean you had a Middle Eastern set, sort of post-apocalyptic? I think technically Outlanders is after the apocalypse, so, was it a Middle Eastern setting, or did the Sphinx come to America?
No, actually, it was a sequel to, and for the life of me, I can't remember which novel. One of the ones that Mark wrote for Deathlands, which dealt with a city called Atten that was set in, if not mistaken, the desert in Nevada or California.
Oh, yes.
You know the one I'm talking about.
Yes.
So that was one of my favorite Deathlands books, so I decided I was going to write a sequel to it set in the Outlanders universe, and well, it, like I said, was one of the best received non-Mark Ellis books out there.
Very good. So, guys, again, any of anybody listening, like I said, it departs from the post-apocalypse. It becomes more of sci-fi, which is there's nothing wrong with that. If you like more of the sci-fi aspect, it might be worth checking out. But again, me being who I am and what I like, I said I didn't care for it, but again, it's good sci-fi, a lot of the time. So it's depends on what you're looking for is what I'm saying here. But again, two series of books. Go ahead.
If you're looking for more mad barons and cults and mutants, you're going to have to stick to Deathlands because yes, it's got that in abundance.
So there you go. That's a show. We got the Deathlands followed by the Outlanders, set in the same universe, post-apocalyptic, way after the apocalypse, a bit more sci-fi, and like we said, the horrible Sci-Fi Channel movie. So.
Yeah. You'll bleed. You will weep tears of blood if you watch that film.
So, all right. So we're gonna call it a show now, and just let you guys know, everybody know, for our next show, and we're gonna have some other guests on. We're going to be talking about commerce in the apocalypse. What does it take to buy things and sell things in the apocalypse? What is currency?
And throwing out a list of some of our favorite and most ridiculous currencies.
Let's save it for the show. Let's save it for the show.
I can keep it in my pants until then.
But we always remember Domars are stupid, and we'll get into why they're stupid on that next show.
Amen, brother.
So we're going to talk about the commerce in the apocalypse. Because there's books, movies, video games, all kinds of different currencies that have been out there. Some are good, some are really good, some are really stupid. They will also talk about possible real world. It's like if the apocalypse really happened, what would really be used for currency? So we're going to kind of delve into that. Before we go, so always remember this. Well, we're going to have some last words first, and I'll give you one more PSA. Scott, any final words?
No final words. Not on the... Oh, all right. My final word is also Crater Lake. I'm going to throw that out as one of the Deathlands novels I enjoyed the most. Was Crater Lake. You can't beat a volcano base filled with inbred mutant scientists plotting to finish off the apocalypse that didn't completely destroy the world. That's a good start.
Crater Lake, book number 4. What was that, Chris?
I said, wasn't that the Friends of Entropy in Gamma World, or am I thinking of another faction?
They had a vague resemblance to the Friends of Entropy.
All right, thank you, Scott. Chris, any last words?
Well, just it was nice being able to talk about a pastime I used to love. Unfortunately, like I said, just because the continuity went down the tubes, that's why I stopped reading when it comes right down to it. If you want a good post-apocalyptic movie, unfortunately it's not nuclear, it's zombie. I would strongly recommend, believe it or not, Warm Bodies. That one that's kind of a zombie romance.
Wow.
My wife and I watched it, really enjoyed it. And
you're giving it the thumbs up.
I'm definitely giving it the thumbs up. Then again, everybody's taste is different, so that's my last word. Check it out. You might enjoy it.
There you go. Thank you, Chris. Again, thanks for coming on. We do appreciate all your insight because, again, you were very involved with the series. And everybody, again, you can find, Deathlands, jamesaxler.com, I believe is a website now. So you can find you can see the listings of all the books, what's out there. There's, Chris had mentioned, I believe there's links on the sites which takes you to the audio books for them, which are not just one guy reading. It's actually, they have a cast of people reading the different characters. So it's almost like listening to like a radio play of the books. So
it's worth it.
I've heard they're pretty good. It's a little expensive. It's a little expensive to get, so I haven't delved into that one yet. But so that's pretty good. My last words. I don't really got much. Again, I said it's a good series to read. I do want to just remind people that if you are enjoying this podcast, please share it with your friends. If you're going to watch it later, like I said, I'm going to start getting it to where it's going to be. I'm going to try to get it in iTunes, try to get just the audio version of it too, so people can listen to it later. If you're going to watch it on YouTube, please make sure to like it on YouTube because liking things does help drive up whatever metrics they do have going there. So please make sure to like it, make sure to share it, tell other people, spread the word, like the Facebook page, follow us on Twitter. All that good social media stuff, just be good, socially responsible social media people. Like things and tell people about it. So
consider it done.
Thank you. So again, thank you for everybody for being here. Thank you everybody for listening. We ran almost an hour, but that's okay. It's gonna. Like I said at the beginning, it's gonna happen sometimes when we do it every other week. So again, Friends of the Apocalypse, thank you for joining us. And we're out of here. Again, keep safe, keep your bunkers full, and we will see you next time talking about commerce in the apocalypse in 2 weeks from now. Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Good eating.